Welcome to Nonprofit Newsfeed, of course, brought to you by Whole Whale, a marketing and analytics agency focused on nonprofits. My name is George Weiner. I am the chief whaler of Whole Whale. And today, we don't have Nick Azoulay. He's busy, otherwise engaged. We do have none other than Leo Quintero, VP of Learning and Innovation at Whole Whale. Leo, welcome. How's it going? Have you ever, to put you on the spot, have you ever listened to this podcast before?
I have listened to it. Before I interview for working for you, I listened to your podcast. So that's always a good tip. But then I was a guest early on, maybe a few years ago, for a little conversation we had around DEI back then. So it's very useful. And I'm glad to be stepping in for Nick. I'm just covering for today and he'll be back. So anyone who's worried that Nick won't be here, don't worry about it. He'll be back in no time.
Awesome. And applause to you for pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, something that I think you are trying to do this year and jump out there and share interesting points of view, which is super helpful because you have done tremendous amounts of work for Whole Whale actually around our, people management, hiring processes, in addition to, the innovation on the team. You're also helping run Nonprofitists. So I feel like going into our first story here, you've got some interesting takes, but the exciting news is that VolunteerMatch and Idealist.org are joining forces, a merger. A merger in the nonprofit sector, is just beyond rare for so many reasons that kind of basically come into like founders don't want to share, boards can never decide on who's going to be the one who acquires the other. And also, if there's not a shareholder value, there's not a bunch of shareholders being like, oh, we're going to double our share value if we merge. It's just a exciting thing to see because of the consolidation of resources. What does this mean? Well, in this merger of VolunteerMatch and Idealist, something I joked was a volunteer match made in heaven because I love both of these organizations. A and B, dad jokes. Both have been past clients of Whole Whale, and also I have been a long time fan of the Idealist founder, Amidar, who is going to be maintaining both existing platforms and the core functionalities of both. So VolunteerMatch, founded in 1998, specialized in connecting nonprofits with individuals and corporate volunteers. Idealist, established in 1995, has focused on connecting people with profit jobs, internships, volunteer opportunities across 180 countries. So they've historically connected over 250,000 organizations with more than 40 million people seeking community involvement. And this merger is set to complete in Q1 of 2025. Awesome. Great timeline, with both platforms continuing to operate their websites and API services while working toward greater integration. Part of the transition, VolunteerMatch board members, Meg Garlinghouse and Chris Mosto, will join the Idealist board to help guide the combined organization's future. I am a long-term fan of Idealist. It is one of those things that in college, I didn't fully understand that the nonprofit sector was something that you could do anything other than volunteer at, that you could actually work in. What is your take on this merger, what it means?
This is really a win-win situation. It's a great thing for HR departments in terms of the talent that is going to be coming their way or there's going to be aggregated. And it's also a win for nonprofits in terms of the work that you need to do with volunteers. It's one of the most difficult things. I worked in nonprofits before, and the recruitment and the identifying of volunteers is always such a kind of delicate thing to do. So this merger, I think it's going to increase the quality of overall volunteers, and the pool. People will have access to a pool of talent from an HR perspective of professionals who have a set of expertise, and I think it's just going to be. I'm very excited about this. This is very good news to start the year.
Yeah, I'd say the cross collaboration is exciting to me because somebody looking to volunteer in the sector might also be interested in a job, and vice versa. So their ability to influence more people and more talent to focus on this sector and realize that there may be opportunities at the places that they're volunteering and vice versa is only going to help organizations that post there. I also think that it's going to give a greater value to your profile as it exists as an employer, right? You have these profiles, right? And you manage, you log in, you go, you pay, as we do, like all our jobs, I think we post on Idealist.
Yeah.
For that, I think that profile is going to matter a lot in curating it, making sure it's up to date. So like put it on your to-do list to be logging in there, checking out that account and making sure it is, representing how you want to show up in the marketplace, both for volunteers and for potential future hires.
Yeah. I'm also imagining, here at Hopewell, we love data so much, but I'm imagining the amount of data and analytics that they're going to be able to collect from this merger in general. It's like is a dream of just HR and anyone, like tracking the impact of volunteer programs, or I don't know, just HR strategies that could be informed by this merger. It's going to be really exciting and something that I'm definitely looking forward to. Maybe putting an idea in the head of this new company that they should do like once a year reports on the data that they have aggregated and share it with the sector. I think it would be very, very important.
Yeah, I know VolunteerMatch puts out volunteering reports that we have seen in the past, but this, you're right, able to give a better visibility as, frankly, the largest entity involved in nonprofit talent, right, as a overarching umbrella is fantastic. I get excited about their ability to influence attention, and I am the long-term optimist on the fact that at present, nonprofits represent 10% of labor in the United States, and I believe that number only goes up as AI commoditizes a lot of things that it will in other sectors. I don't think our service to each other can simply be done with a robot, with an algorithm. It involves people working with people, and that takes labor. And I think our sense of purpose is going to be more and more fulfilled by the nonprofit sector and found on Idealist and VolunteerMatch. I wish I could invest, I'd invest it, right? But there's nothing to invest in. Like, I'd buy that stock.
Let's go back in time and try to do it.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. That's not how any of this works.
Nope, it didn't work. Something that came to my mind and I wanted to ask you, do you think there any kind of like downsides to this merger? Are we losing something, or this is all wins across the board?
They're seeming to, and I don't have any details, and I have reached out to Amidar for an interview to be like, hey, what about this? A risk I could see is that because the volunteer postings might be overlapping, if they suddenly consolidated overnight, or like, oh, let me post one place here, like the SEO value and digital footprint of VolunteerMatch is massive, as is Idealist's.
Yeah.
So if suddenly you just sort of collapsed it into one domain, what would you do to the visual real estate available when I search for volunteers in Chicago, right? Oh, there'd only be one listing, and then competitors could fill up that space. So I think there is still a world, albeit may seem inefficient, to actually maintain that listing, but you want to do it in a balance. So that would be a downside where you would potentially lose out on reputation.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought about that one.
Conversely, they could just dual post onto VolunteerMatch and say like VolunteerMatch is like educational section, and just dual post it and just get and leverage the SEO on that side. I don't want to give away too many of the secrets. I think there's a lot of upside, but there's definitely right ways of going about it.
Yeah.
All
Very
right.
excited.
Quick summaries. We got some other stuff in here. This is a bit of a controversy here. Abrams founded nonprofit to pay $300,000 for campaign finance violations, reported by NBC News. Georgia Ethics Commission has levied its largest fine against the New Georgia Project and its affiliate, the Action Fund, for violating campaign finance laws during the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial race. Basically, the organizations founded by Stacey Abrams in 2013 didn't disclose around $4 million in contributions and $3 million spent to support Abrams campaigns and other candidates. So they found 16 violations, undisclosed canvassing activities, campaign literature, field operations. So the Abrams team definitely noted that she hadn't been involved with the organization since 2017. Then leader Raphael Warnock's office stated that he wasn't involved in compliance decisions, but the groups basically have accepted, paid it, trying to move forward with their civic engagement work. But it is a reminder the difference between a 501c3 and a 501c4, right?
Yeah.
Can you do lobbying? Do you have to pay taxes on it? That will be revealed. It may take time, but especially as you work in the politicized world of advocacy And lobbying, like that's not, I think, a mistake that should be made, unfortunately, by organizations with reputations at that level. There's, again, if you get that money tax exempt, you can only do a certain amount of lobbying that has to be aligned with your mission as stated and approved by the IRS. Otherwise, you're doing lobbying and then you get taxed on that stuff. You can't do that. So, they got called out.
I think the word that keeps coming to my mind as I'm paying attention to this is compliance, and compliance from a point of view of, working in HR or in any department, but nonprofits receive funds. And then a lot of times those funds are restricted, or they have certain specific ways of spending that money. And it's so important that everyone is paying a close attention to policies and any relevant regulations. And these policies should not just be, in a piece of paper or in a file. I think trainings are important to just talk about these things with employees so everyone is aware of the things and the regulations that they need to be paying attention to. And so to avoid this type of situations, or to be better prepared and to prepare your staff better for situations like this. And, even beyond that, just, I imagine the organization's reputation and the amount of work that is going to have to go into this to respond to this news.
Yeah, I wonder how much. Clearly, if you're doing canvassing and you understand where these checks are being written from, is this a moment where you're just like, the mission is so important, the actions we have to take is so important that it is a ask for forgiveness moment? I don't think nonprofits are allowed to ask forgiveness at the rate that for-profit companies are because of the restrictions. And also, you're not getting away with it. You're getting audited. Yep. Transparency, like you're in the 990, the amount of data in that 990 is, fairly intense for organizations that operate over, starting at like $250,000. Like it's all mapped out there. You might get away with it for now, but not for always. And I think there's less forgiveness afforded to nonprofits, especially in the politicized realm. So, I was kind of sad to see it because it just sort of like feeds this narrative of, sort of wrongdoing on the progressive side, which I think is just so normally just incredibly careful with its actions. And then like this is held up as this like one example in the corner. Anyway, this next one's confusing. We have parsed this out.
Break it down for me, please.
Okay, so here we go. New York Times wrote up this piece about a July 2023 change in Google's trademarks advertising that has been challenging nonprofits. This change actually is born from an EU digital policy that was put in place. So they had to comply with this. And in short, what is happening is that like St. Jude, who's mentioned in this, for example, or the Samaritan House, they have search results, right? So you search for their brand. So I'm going to say brand reputation terms. So all those terms related to St. Jude hospitals, donate to St. Jude. You're thinking about this ecosystem of words. What's happening inside of the Google marketplace for the sponsored area of like you pay to play to show up in those results, is that other organizations are now allowed to use their branded terms to advertise their stuff, which on the surface is like, okay, but what is a second order effect? Well, what's started to happen, and they call out in this article, is that groups that are sort of like tier 3 search engines like ask.com or like InfoSeek, whatever, like these groups that are now advertising for branded nonprofit key terms to send traffic to their search results for that topic. And you're like, sure, it's an open marketplace. However, it's a marketplace based on bidding strategies. So to show up number one, it's not like I pay for that billboard and I automatically get it. No, it's a dynamic billboard that changes based on an algorithm, based on how much is bid for the placement, based on the quality of the text and keywords associated with it, combined with the quality of the landing page and relevance to the topics. All of this stuff is mixed up into this soup. And long story short, or long story long, because I've already gone long on this, is that because of this marketplace dynamic, nonprofits, especially in December, which were paying to show up for their branded terms, donate to St. Jude's and things like that, were paying significantly more because of this marketplace dynamic of outside groups like these search engines, ask.com, being like, hey, interested in St. Jude's, you should take a look at the search result. And like, that's not going to send that person who's in a giving moment to go to the landing page they desired. So New York Times is trying to like explain this, and they have one incident where, and they didn't cite the source and they didn't give full details, but a nonprofit spending like $200,000 in 5 days to show up for their terms in the last days of the year, significantly blowing through their marketing budget. I have questions about why you throw good money after bad in those particular moments, but does this make sense? Did I do it? Did I make a long story long, but at least explain it?
It did. You did a very good job explaining it. But then the first thing that popped into my mind is like, oh, okay, so do I need to start searching for alternative advertising channels? Like, what do I need to learn from this? Or do I panic and go somewhere else? Or like, what do I do?
Leo, you should definitely always panic.
Oh,
Step one, I want blind, unadulterated panic with irrational decision making at speed. I think that's important. Seriously, though, you can't ignore Google search. Can't do it. It is 90% of the market share for people discovering information. Okay, so that's where people are going to play. The next thing I would point us toward is the fact that actually this is in part, I believe, the genesis of why the Google Ad Grant exists. Google and its knowledge and its access to data was aware that like, look, nonprofits are going to need to play in this very, very expensive game, which is why they have given away since 2003, $17 billion, B with a B. It is the most generous corporate donation program in history. I challenge anyone to find me a number that is larger and more accurate than that. 17 billion, according to that statement, that allows nonprofits to play this game. However, you need to know how to leverage this grant. Because of this, the thread to pull and to look up is about maximizing bidding for conversions. And that lets you escape the $2 limit on the keyword spend. And what you need to do is talk to your agency. And if you don't have an agency, come find us. We have a bunch of friends at Nonprofitist who can help you. You want to set up a campaign with that maximized bidding strategy, with a bucket of your branded keywords that just can run and compete and fight for your spot. You can't push everyone else out, but can fight for your spot in the branded search term results for your organization. And that, I got to say, is a heck of a lot more than I see Microsoft doing and any other platform doing. So yes, this is kind of used as a bit of a straw man for attacking Google as a monopoly for what they, really do own in terms of the knowledge search. But it's not like they're ignoring nonprofits.
Well, it's very good advice for nonprofits in general. And I think this will definitely affect smaller nonprofits that, don't have big budgets and capabilities to do this type of advertisement. But,
Yeah. And I think there's like an assumption of malicious intent, which I don't think is there, to be honest, with like, you're angry at ask.com. How dare they? Like, you know what it is? There's somebody in the marketing program clicking a button being, give me related keywords associated with this. And actually on the back end of what Google actually in their search results and their ad search platforms are doing are giving you related keyword terms. So let's just say you have search results for nonprofits. It's like, hey, try these keywords. And you're like, okay. And it's just algorithmically, even on its own sometimes, if you set it a certain way, just adding keywords that it thinks are relevant. So without malicious intent, it is just trying to monetize attention wherever it finds it based on this keyword related to this keyword related to this keyword. And you're adding 50, 100,000 keywords in this batch. Like, honestly, I'm if your mind immediately went, how dare they? And by the way, they have said, you can reach out to them. So if you do a little sort of gardening, a little spring cleaning on your search results, which you should always do, you can actually contact folks and be like, hey, I'm sure it's just an accident. Like, don't start off with the like cease and desist. I'm sure it's just an accident, an oversight. It seems like you're advertising for, the Red Cross San Francisco. Would you mind like changing your targeted keywords? We pay for this and trying to find volunteers on it. Thank you. Like, I think they'll hear you out and they'll be like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. I'd be shocked if it were like with malicious intent there. And they like, I don't know if the New York Times like fairly painted with that brush, because they had an agenda on the monopoly angle against Google, I think, in general.
And I wonder also like how much information did they have before they put this out. So, but I don't know. Yeah, be interesting to ask them their process.
All right. MLK Day was honored by Vermont nonprofits in our Feel Good story and service and celebration. Definitely an ongoing day of celebration, but other organizations across the country marked the 30th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, community gatherings, service initiatives, and the Echo Leah Center in Burlington offered free admissions to interactive exhibits. So I like the entire sort of state getting behind actions that promote the day, the memory, and the meaning of what it means to serve in each other's interests.
Yeah. And I don't know, no matter in which side do you sit right now in our current situation in our country, the next 4 years are going to be tough for all of us. So I think focusing on community engagement and things that are driving community participation and things like this are going to be crucial for all of us to keep some sort of sanity, but also to be putting out there the work that needs to be done as things move closer to the edge for nonprofits and for different organizations. So I was excited to see that they were doing this initiative, and we have so many opportunities throughout the year to do a lot more of this engagement. So good for them.
All right, Leo, it's nonprofit dad joke time.
But this is the thing that I've been dragging. I see this on the podcast when I watch it, and I'm like, oh, do I have to laugh?
You don't. That's very important that you do not laugh whatsoever. It only adds to the value. All right.
Got it.
What do you call a dedicated nonprofit supporter who is an expert at baking bread?
With dough.
You're so close, actually.
A donor?
You did it.
I did.
Crushes it. A donor.
And I'm laughing at my own.
See?
Well, you got me.
Huzzah. Well, Leo, thank you for joining us. Thank you for pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. I would challenge the audience to follow Leo's example. The next time somebody says, hey, you want to do a thing? Take an opportunity, speak, go for it, especially if it pushes you outside of your comfort zone. Thanks, Leo.
Thank you, George. I had a good time.